Today we're going to talk about how the forbearance and foreclosure fallacy will play out through 2021 and beyond. Welcome to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week, or as I like to call it, another episode of As the Housing Market Turns. Randy Patrick here, putting the realism back in real estate. Today is the 18th of January. We're past the halfway point. A lot of stuff happening this week. I'm sure everyone's prepared for who knows what, but as I always say, regardless of what goes on, the housing market still will churn along and do its own thing. So today is going to be kind of interesting. I want to go over some year-end stats and some predictions for the future. But first of all, if you're not already a subscriber to my channel, if you could please smash that subscriber button and help my channel grow, I would really appreciate that. So thank you very much. Okay, so I mentioned the word fallacy. So basically, what is a fallacy? It's a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound arguments. Or if we look a little different, or a little deeper, it's, we look at the definition here, invalid or otherwise faulty reasoning in the construction of an argument. And a fallacious argument may be deceptive by appearing to be better than it really is. Some fallacies are committed intentionally to manipulate or persuade by deception, while others are committed unintentionally due to carelessness or ignorance. So I think we have a little bit of both going on here with respect to the housing market. Clearly, there's narratives at play. You can even say, I have my own narrative as well too, but I hope that my narrative is based on facts and figures as opposed to hoping and praying as to what's going to happen in the future. So we know where things are at, right? We talk about housing prices, lack of inventory, low interest rates. So what's going to happen in the new year? So what we're talking about today really is sort of a year-end foreclosure, we'll call it synopsis. So the Q4 foreclosure information was produced by Adam Data Solutions. So we're going to see, you're probably going to see lots of articles on this out there, but ultimately it's the foreclosure activity drops in 2020 as the backlog builds up. So you can see that nice blue line there, and you can see, the blue line was really big in 2007, 8, 9, sort of peaking at 10, 11, or 2010, and dropping its way down to where we are in 2020. Now, the unique thing about 2020 is it's low, clearly, but why is it low? It's because we have moratoriums going on now. Various moratoriums, plural, singular, however you want to say it, in different states, different counties, different locations, different loan segments, FHA loans, different, CDC moratorium, things like that. So the market is being strangled, it's being choked. We have less distressed properties hitting the marketplace or did hit the marketplace in 2020. And now we see a post-housing crisis low. So I'm clear, I know that I'm sure other websites, other news reporting will go on saying, look at the housing market's great, our foreclosures are pretty much gone away, everything is good, but they're not factoring into the fact that we've got a lot of stuff that's going to happen this year. This year it's going to start to unload and it's going to open up, and we're already seeing that now. So just wanting to be clear on all that and set the stage for, I think, what's going to happen in 2021. Obviously, we look at forbearance, declining rate of forbearance, improvements, set up larger unknowns. So, this is the thing with forbearance is that, we've had a lot of people, roughly 6 million people have been in a forbearance program. We have roughly, according to, this is the volume as of January 5th, I couldn't find anything quick enough to put on there. So as I always say, it ebbs or flows on a weekly basis, but we're at that 2.75, 2.8 million homes in forbearance, properties, mortgages in forbearance, homeowners in forbearance, and it's been pretty consistent. That seems to be the level where we're hovering around. We also know that there is about 1 to 1.2 million delinquent mortgages in various stages of delinquency all the way to foreclosure auction status that are not under any forbearance, we'll call it program here, offered by any lender or government, CARES Act, whatever. So we're looking at 2.75 million, 2.8 million, plus about 1.1, 1.2 million not under any program. That's about almost 4 million homes that are kind of in a distressed situation. That's a lot of homes. If those homes come on the marketplace, that's going to make a difference in the ability for us to purchase, properties and to have price reductions and just to have more access to more property. Simple as that. So, it's one of those things that this is a cycle, it's a natural progression, and clearly, people don't want to talk about it or they want to downplay what's going on. I get it. So the interesting thing here is the fact that the declining rate of improvement implies that those who were able to absorb the shock of the pandemic and back on their feet may have already done so, said a Black Knight economist here. And this is from, this information typically is from Black Knight Financial. That's usually the mortgage and data source that a lot of the people are looking to for this forbearance information. The rising share of extensions versus removals suggests that those who remain in forbearance are in need of help and may require the full 12-month allotted to them under the current pandemic-related assistance. It also increases the number of homeowners who remain in plans when the first wave of 12-month cutoffs come to the end at March, setting up a larger unknown for how it will impact both the mortgage and housing markets. So that's the whole point here. So forbearance really is a 12-month program. Once your forbearance is over and you're only allowed to have a forbearance plan for 12 months, then it kind of, you really kind of hit the pavement here running. So are you able to get back on your mortgage payments and start paying? Well, if you can, then they're going to manipulate what you owed over the past 12 months and put it at the back of the loan or whatever they stated, which we're still not 100% sure that's all going to happen yet. Well, that's what they're talking about. But the whole point, though, is that you have to get back on making payments. If you can't make your payments on your mortgage plan after your forbearance deal is over, guess what? You're going to fall into a distress loss mitigation bucket, and they're going to have to deal with you in a different way. Can you do a loan modification? If that doesn't work, then you know what? You're going to fall into a foreclosure bucket. So really, this is where we are with respect to lack of unemployment, bad economy, lack of stimulus money, the whole bit. People are in a precarious situation. Clearly, everyone must realize that unemployment insurance, stimulus money, whatever you're getting from the government is not true income and won't be calculated or even considered when you're looking at things like doing a loan modification or things like that. So that's where this is going to kind of break down. Past due borrowers will likely need further government intervention when the CARES Act expires, as will servicers, in order to avoid a tidal wave of foreclosure. So look at what they said there, avoid a tidal wave of foreclosure. So it's going to happen. It's coming. Yes, we're going to have controls, constraints, slowdowns, whatever, to try to avoid the tidal wave. But in the end, it's kind of inevitable. And if my basic conservative numbers of 4 million people exposed here, and one thing I want to mention about forbearance too, and I've said this over and over again, and it's talked about, it's discussed, it's in news articles and whatever. So please understand that I'm not making this stuff up. Everything I show you is live information on the internet. Now, the 80% of the people who are currently in forbearance have already gone through one forbearance program iteration and had to re-up again. So that's the situation we're in. So clearly, if you can get out of forbearance and start paying your mortgage and get onto a loan mod or something, you do it. But if you can't, you can't. And that's the point where the majority of people who are in forbearance are becoming more and more seriously delinquent, and that is problematic. So this is where we're going with all this. Now, Adam Data Solutions puts out their foreclosure activity they do it on a quarterly basis. So we can see it's dropped to a 16-year low in 2020. So let's not all jump for joy because there's a reason. So ultimately, it says Adam Data Solutions released its year-end 2020 U.S. foreclosure market report, which shows foreclosure filings, default notices, scheduled auctions, and bank repossessions were reported on 214,000 properties in 2020, down 57% from 2019 and down 93% from a peak of nearly 2.9 million in 2010, the lowest level since it's been tracking in 2005. So yes, if we take a look at this graph here, we can see where it started in 2005, we can see where it peaked in 2009 and 10, and where we are at the right-hand side. So clearly, the moratoriums, the lenders, we're not processing foreclosures, we're not foreclosing on people based on loan profiles, and also a lot of lenders who maybe don't fall under some of these CARES Acts, they are just being good people and not pursuing foreclosure auctions and filing foreclosures because that's what they were doing. Good public relations, but things are changing now, and we're starting to see some movement in this. So 2021 is where we start, and we'll see things pick up. Mark my words here, guys. All right, let's take a look at the next slide here. So here it is a little bit blown up. So we can see that when you take a look at the 2021 quarter, that's nothing compared to what it was the previous year, the previous year, the previous year. So we can see that things were leveling off a little bit come 2017. Now, again, you have to take a look at stuff and go, well, we had a lot more equity in 2017. So there is some, we'll call it acknowledgement on my part that yes, if you have equity, and also depending on where you live in the country, some locations like West Coast or Northeast may have a lot of equity compared to what's owed if you're in foreclosure. So you could sell, pay off your mortgage, and move on. Other locations across the country, not so much equity. So it depends on where you're at. But when I talk about the fallacy is the fact that what's been spoken about the past few weeks or couple months is that we're not going to have any issues because the lenders will have programs and help all the people in forbearance. And if you are facing an imminent foreclosure, you're going to have equity and you're going to be able to sell and you're going to be able to move on and things will be great. Well, that's again going to that whole blanket conversation where we don't know if that's going to happen or not. Yes, there's trillions of dollars of equity that have been gained over the past few years. Realize that every month you don't pay on your situation and you're facing foreclosure, you're chipping away at that equity. And there could be things that you're not considering. And also, no one's just going to pay top market value to help you out when you got 2 weeks to go before your foreclosure sale. So you're not going to be able to tap into all that equity. So just, I think that's where people realize that they have this false sense of security that I've got equity. And really, they may have equity, but things may change and it may not play out how they feel it's going to play out as they approach an imminent foreclosure sale date, which will be increasing. So if you look at the first paragraph, the government's moratoria have effectively stopped foreclosure activity on everything but vacant and abandoned homes. So we are seeing homes that are going to foreclosure, but as they say, it's going to be vacant and abandoned properties because there's no point keeping those out of foreclosure process. Why not get rid of those, which is true. There is a backlog of foreclosures building up, loans that were in foreclosure prior to the moratoria, loans that would have defaulted under normal circumstances, and loans whose borrowers are in financial distress due to the pandemic, said the VP of Realty Track. While it's still highly unlikely we'll see another wave of foreclosures like the one we had during the Great Recession, we really won't know how big the backlog is until after the government programs expire. Well, we'll talk about that in a second here, but realize, look, bank repossessions decreased 95% from the peak. So yeah, when we go to that graph and we look at the peak, which was 2.7, 2.9 million foreclosures going on at that time frame that's on an annual basis. So clearly we're down from the peak, and we're down from the peak because we're not moving properties because of the moratorium. So as much as that's real numbers, there's reasons behind that. And I want to make sure everyone understands that. So the narrative really can't be that the life is good in the real estate world. There will be problems. The problems are coming. The problems are actually arriving right now. And we got to be aware of this type of stuff. So foreclosure starts at new record low nationwide. Idaho, only state to see an annual increase. So yes, lenders started the foreclosure process in only 131,000 properties in 2020, down 61% from the previous year, and of course down 94% from a peak back in 2009. So if we keep looking at the peak of the last housing crisis, so I guess what we're trying to do here, and I'm not poo-pooing on Adam Data Solutions here because quite frankly, they're one of the only groups that are talking about this. So I do appreciate them releasing this data, and I'm pro them as a company, to be quite honest with you. But you still have to spin it. So we're afraid to talk about how bad things are. We still have to spin it. So why do they have to? So yeah, we're down 61% from last year. Great. But we're down 94% from the peak back in the last housing crisis. So the underlying sentiment here is, hey guys, don't worry. We're not as bad as the last housing crisis. So yeah, we got some problems, but we're not as bad as the last housing crisis. So that's kind of what's being spun here. And it is what it is, right? If you look at states that saw declines in the foreclosure starts from last year, included Oregon down 79%, Kansas down 77%, Arkansas 77%, Nevada down 71%, and Massachusetts down 70%. Because why, and the thought process is, why start it if we can't finish it? We're just wasting time or spinning our wheels. Also, many of certain locations, the court systems were slowed down. The county courthouses are closed. You can't go visit there. Everyone's working remote. They're downsizing their staff. So I can tell you that, especially down here, we didn't see a lot of stuff moving that fast because it just wasn't moving and it didn't make sense. So that's kind of the situation. Now, counter to the trend, Idaho saw a slight uptick, 4% from last year in foreclosure filings. And when we start looking at metro locations, we're seeing, Jacksonville down 74% in Florida, Vegas down 74%, Washington, D.C. down 72%, Memphis, Tennessee down 72%, and Orlando down 71%. Well, from the Florida stuff, I know exactly where the numbers are. So yeah, they have decreased. I look at Tampa. Tampa had about 1,000 foreclosure filings for the Tampa area, at least Hillsborough County, where I am, for the year, which is normally they're around 3,500. So we're down significantly just because lenders aren't processing, courts aren't moving, attorneys aren't moving that fast as well either. So my whole point here is take this with a grain of salt. Delaware, New Jersey, Illinois post top state foreclosure rates in 2020. So there still are locations that are filing. We got Delaware, Jersey, Illinois, Maryland, and South Carolina had some of the highest foreclosure rates as a percentage of housing units. And rounding out the top 10 states were Florida, Connecticut, Ohio, Georgia, and Indiana. Pretty much most of the stuff that I see there was just like the last housing crisis with respect to maybe Indiana, maybe it was not up there. And we're not seeing a California or in Arizona. But this is where we're seeing a pickup as well, too. So that's what's going on in certain locations. Metro areas with higher than a million, we had a high rate were Cleveland, Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Riverside, California. So that's kind of the same as it was back in the last housing crisis as well, too. So like I always say, no surprises. Now, average time to foreclosure actually increases. So we were actually seeing a decrease in foreclosure timelines. And why I say that is, I do a lot of research on this, and the lenders want to move property. So if you're in foreclosure, they were actually, moving faster now to foreclose on some properties because it doesn't make sense for them to hold on to it for various reasons. Let's dispose of it, get it sold at the auction, get our money, off to the races we go. With low inventory and, on both the investment side and the retail side, many investors are buying at the foreclosure auction. So we were seeing those timeframes actually speed up. But now, of course, we've seen a little bit of an increase in the past couple of quarters just because of the delays from the pandemic and the courts, etc. So no doubt about it, the average days to foreclose across the nation in Q4 was 857 days. So you have two types of states. We have what we call the trustee states, which tend to foreclose faster once they issue a notice of default. You have the judicial states, which take usually a lot more time when they typically send out what's called the notice of foreclosure filing, lis pendens, etc. So, and I always joke with this, lis pendens is not a lady who works downtown at the courthouse, all right? Lis pendens is Latin for notice of litigation, as far as I know. So there you go. So realize there's some changes here. Now, top 10 zip codes where foreclosure filings are on the rise. So what I've learned with Adam Data Solutions is that if I jump on the first article, the next day they post some more details. So I usually wait a day now. So this is kind of interesting. So what we're seeing now is just the fact that they've got some top 10 states here. So if you take a look at what's going on, this is just a little additional information to their report. They're basically saying, hey, they dig deeper into the data that some U.S. zip codes are showing increases in filings to the point where they got the top 10 zip codes and they're increasing 210%. 177%, 164%, 125%, 83%, 78%. So these zip codes are increasing from the year over year. And clearly, the increases are going to look big when the numbers are smaller. So when there's a big delta between the numbers. So if we go to what we call the top 10 zip codes, you've got a zip code in, looks like Manteca, California. Big time, we've got Tracy, California, College Station, Texas, Stockton, California, another zip code in Stockton, California, Walla Walla, Washington, Stockton, California, Savannah, Georgia, Durham, North Carolina. So these are the locations that we're jumping. Now, when you take a look at the bottom legend, that's just foreclosure filing. So it's not like they were huge. We're talking, 45 filings for Stockton in that zip code. Well, it is zip code based, so of course it doesn't represent the entire city or county, but it's interesting to see that California locations are picking up. Stockton locations got 3 of the top zip codes in there. And I know Stockton really had a hard time in the last housing crisis. So what we're going to see is that every month we're going to have the different data sets that are coming out going, hey, A little bit of ebb and flow here. Hey, we had an uptick here, a little decrease there, but we're going to see kind of a generic uptick in stuff as 2021 rolls around. I guess that's the point. So that's a good thing for, not great for the homeowners, but it's a good thing that if stuff is moving or starting to move, that's going to give more options for home purchasing on both the first on primary on the investor level, and hopefully a lot of those homes will come out to the retail marketplace as additional inventory, because we know we need that, and there's no hiding that fact. So this is the point to all this, and what is my point? Well, I showed this the last video that we talked auction.com. So one of the comment on the first article from the dude, he's the EVP at Realty Track, which is owned by Adam Data Solutions. So auction.com and Adam Data Solutions, they're all kind of, they're all related. Adam owns auction.com and Realty Track. So they have the information that goes on here. So I've been on a couple of webinars and picked off the information. So we can see that, initially around November timeframe, they're talking about 1.8 million, 2.3 million completed foreclosures down the road. So they're looking at that. And then I know that it was adjusted to about 2.5 million to 3 million foreclosures. That was their adjustment on a subsequent webinar. And then I wanted to point out that also we've got this 1.1 to 1.2 million delinquencies that aren't in any foreclosure plans. So if I'm taking a look at, the 2.5 to 3 million, adding this 1.1, 1.2, we're going to be in that 3.5 to 4 million range. And I believe this is all conservatively speaking numbers. As the narrative goes, the last thing that we want to do, or the government or these groups want to do, is spook the public. So we don't know how bad things are going to be, but this is the numbers they're talking about now. So for me, the markets are frothy. We've heard that word before back in the day. And we're acknowledging that we're going to have this, so it's about being prepared and moving forward for it. So this should not come to a surprise to anybody. The difference, though, is that for me, the fallacy of the narrative is that equity is going to fix all these problems. So these 3 to 4 million foreclosures will have no effect on the marketplace whatsoever. If you have equity, you're just going to sell your property, you're going to cash out, life will be good, someone will jump on your home, and everything will be great. Well, I don't think that's going to play out that way, and this is what I call the whole foreclosure and forbearance fallacy. Now talking to, I picked this off LinkedIn, off my LinkedIn profile. This guy, Darren Bloomquist, again, I don't know him personally. He's a VP at auction.com, involved Adam Data Solutions a whole bit. As I said, I like their platform. I like their information. They're coming out even saying this. Look, short sales and other pre-foreclosures sales are poised to become a more dominant share of the distressed market in 2021 and beyond. So that's the whole thing. So it's going to happen. We have to be patient. I talk to a lot of people, and right now these are not on-market properties. I want to be clear about that. Everybody wants, and I say this every time on my video now, is that what I don't need to hear from everybody is, I want a 3,000 square foot home with 4 bedrooms, a pool, on the water, and I want to buy it for 50% off. That's not really relevant to me, because these are not available right now. It's going to take time for these properties to go through end of forbearance, foreclosure process to actually be hitting the market, because the homeowner has to they have to ask for help to engage. So they're not on market unless the homeowner wants to be on market. The key here is marketing to the homeowner, because we know who they all are, and getting the deals, which is what we do where we are down here, and that's how we work our business model. So the whole point, there are properties available right now. You just have to know where to look. And this little image here is distressed sales. 1% of the entire sales across the board every month. National Association of Realtors talks about this. I show the slide. Cash buyers, investor buyers, first-time home buyers. 1% is distressed sales. Those distressed sales are made up of what? On-market, REO, and short sales. So 1% of all on-market property sales falls into the distressed property category. REO is real estate owned, which means banks have foreclosed on them and put them back out in the MLS. And short sales, active short sales that are put on the MLS. Well, if 1% is both REOs and short sales, we can pretty much say that, let's just say half of that, so 0.5%, is the short sales, which shows us that no one's doing short sales. When we look at what's going on, so I know that there's pre-foreclosures in the shadow inventory. I know that there's homes that are going to to auction right now. No one's doing short sales. Real estate agents aren't going after this market. Real estate investors aren't going after this market. How do we know this? Back to the 1% rule. If more people were doing this, there'd be more of those on market. We'd see that 1% distressed sales every month increase over time. So it's actually getting smaller over time, which to me is the flip side of the biggest inventory. So I always say, once in a lifetime opportunity, now is our second chance at a once in a lifetime opportunity. Very interesting as time goes on. Foreclosure filings are quietly increasing. More properties are scheduled for FC auction, for foreclosure auction. Again, think of the 1% rule. No one's going after this marketplace. Why can't you go after it? Why can't you learn to go after it? Why can't you spend some time and figure out how this actually works to get yourself that property that's cheaper than retail and overpaying, etc. Now, the reason I can show this because I see the data, and two, talking to my attorney who I work with, who does all of our short sale negotiation and processing, he has said that he's seen an increase in the filings that's coming across, from what he does and where he sees his data, which is we're pretty much off the same data feeds. And I know because I look at the foreclosure calendars, we know that we saw some upticks in November, December. I want to be clear here that December, when you have holiday weeks for Thanksgiving and over the Christmas holidays, not much happens on the auction side, on the foreclosure filing side, on moving the cases forward side. Now that January is back in play, we're seeing more foreclosure filings, and we'll see the court systems pick up again, and the attorneys for the lenders get back in the swing of things. So we'll start to see that volume pick up, and there will be the opportunities. All right, so want more information? I'm happy to tell you about it. Just connect with me. That is my email. If I haven't had a chance to speak with you, just ping me again, and we'll get on the schedule for this week. I do talk to a lot of people, so if I haven't gotten to you, I'm sorry. If we've missed each other, I'm sorry. Just keep trying. And I do spend a lot of time on the phone. I spend a lot of time talking to people and trying to help them or figure out what we can do together. So, having said that, everybody, thank you for the likes, the comments, and the views. Please share the video with your family and friends. Look forward to speaking with you in a couple of days.